Test.
Hello, test, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Are you good? Do you need me to keep talking? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. You hear me loud and clear? Awesome. You good? Hey, Steph, I could hear you. Okay. Okay. Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, well,
Never know.
I'll
try it just to
make it straight, but just turn it off. Yeah,
Well, she said she wants me to tell her when they're off to the side.
Oh, really? You had it right on the side? Went downtown? Oh, what if I just... Because they have...
That's mine.
Oh.
Lead on.
You sure?
But I still kind of angry.
turn onto Fifth Street back towards the convention center. You'll see van 16 off to the left. There's a driveway right in front of van 16.
Steph? Steph?
They're walking in, but not up yet. So it's coming. And Sherrod Brown is here. Okay. And Steph, Rob Portman is here also. And they're walking up now, Steph. They're walking up now.
Yeah, everybody wants to stay. I'm going to keep going. You guys, yeah, that's perfect. And then we're just wait, Senator Brown, and then. You guys ready? Hello, this is Nan Whaley, Mayor of Dayton, Ohio. I think this is our 4th press conference of the day, and I've seen some of you at every single one of them, so appreciate your diligence in getting the word out and getting the correct information out from your news outlets. I want to introduce who's with me this afternoon. City Manager Shelley Dickstein, U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown, U.S. Senator Rob Portman, Deputy Chief Matt Carper, State Representative Phil Plummer, and former County Sheriff, and Congressman Mike Turner. I just want to take a moment to talk about the outpouring of support we've seen across the country. Today, to moment, I think I've had over 70 mayors and from across the country reach out. Particularly have been of help have been Buddy Dyer of Orlando, who had to work with his community through the Pulse nightclub. Mayor Bill Peduto of Pittsburgh, obviously with the Tree of Life Synagogue. Mayor Cranley of Cincinnati has been helpful, and Mayor Jane Castor, who's the new mayor of Tampa, who is a former police chief. Honestly, I have to say that unfortunately, because we have so many of these incidences, there is a bevy of mayors that are able to give great advice and feedback. I think that's, quite frankly, a little sad if you think about it, that they've learned so much because all of their communities have gone through these terrible mass shootings. Today at 2 o'clock, I was very appreciative that Senators Brown, Senators Portman, and Congressman Turner, as well as U.S. Attorney Ben Glassman, the FBI and ATF came together for a briefing with Chief Beal and Chief Carper. We then walked the scene of the site in the Oregon District so the senators and congressmen could get a good sense of exactly what happened on the ground. And I want to say how much I appreciate their support and their calls and what can I do questions during this day. It's meant a lot to me personally, and I know it's meant a lot to the citizens of Dayton. With that, I'd like to invite Senator Sherrod Brown to come forward and say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. This is obviously a terribly difficult time for this community, and I so appreciate especially police and fire and the rescue operations, how quickly the police department, police officers on the scene so courageously stood up and did the right thing and saved literally potentially hundreds of lives with the amount of ammunition the shooter had and how quickly they responded and how what a short period of time from the first shot to the last shot. So it really does tell me a lot about local public servants, police and fire and rescue operations. We had, the mayor tells us 20 first responders from the region came, in addition to the 6 or 7 from the city of Dayton that arrived all within 20 minutes to save lives. So that's what local communities do, which come together like this. The mayor took us all to walk through the Oregon District. It's in many ways the center of Dayton in terms of evenings and small businesses. Every single business in that area just about is locally owned and with the vibrancy of local ownership and what that means. And they're all coming together as they will tonight at the vigil, but for the next many days, the way that Dayton came together after the tornado and after in dealing with the KKK rally a few weeks ago. My first talk with the mayor today, the first thing she told me, other than expressing the grief and the heartache of this community, was how she had gotten literally dozens of texts, emails, and phone calls from mayors around the country, almost all of whom have had something like this happen in their communities. And so our first response, I'll speak for myself, Connie's my first response, of course, is sadness and hearts and prayers and thoughts for families and the community overall, including police and fire and how they respond to this in the weeks ahead from the trauma that they've seen as public servants. My next thought was anger at our country and society and our Congress for not doing anything about this. The House of Representatives has passed a bill to do background checks, overwhelmingly bipartisanly. I've called on Senator McConnell to bring the Senate back into session. We can pass that in one afternoon, background checks. The President of the United States could sign it that day. There's just no reason we shouldn't be doing that. So we certainly pray for the victims and care about the victims, but Congress needs to do something. Our state legislature, again, woefully inadequate in dealing with gun violence, also needs to react and respond in the right way so that these incidents just don't happen week after week after week after week in our country.
Next, I'd like to invite Senator Portman to come forward to say a few words. Senator Brown came from Cleveland. Senator Portman came from Cincinnati. I'm just completely amazed by people coming here to get here as soon as possible. Senator Portman.
The Miami Valley is in mourning today after the tragedy of last night's shooting. We did walk down to the Oregon District, and we saw what has been a thriving commercial section of the city and saw lots of great small businesses. We also saw workers in hazmat suits. These were EMS personnel who were having to clean the blood off the sidewalk from the tragedy of last night. Shocking, unspeakable, tragic. We also have seen this community respond, as they will for the victims, for the mothers and fathers and sons and daughters who were struck down last night and those who were injured. We've seen it here in this community just since May with the KKK rally. We've seen it as this community came together after the devastating hurricanes, which, you know, is still an ongoing project, but I've talked to the mayor a lot about this, and Mayor Whaley knows that I'm impressed with what I've seen is how this community comes together and responds. And we saw it last night with these brave police officers who, in the face of danger, ran straight into it. You'll learn more about this at 4 o'clock. And all I can say is, because we're not at liberty to talk about it, and I think it's appropriate that law enforcement provide the perspective that you need on this, but this courage was extraordinary and saved lives, probably hundreds of lives, given the situation. There is also an effort going on in the community that I hope everybody will support, which is through the Dayton Community Foundation. And it's called the Oregon District Tragedy Fund. It's a fund that's been set up to help the victims. Again, this community comes together. I'll be making a contribution to it. I'm sure everyone will behind me. And I know this community is going to come together and help these victims, those who are injured, the families of those who lost lives. So this is a tragedy that requires that kind of response. My colleague Senator Brown has talked about legislation. We should also, of course, as we figure out what happened here, learn lessons from it, just as we need to learn lessons from others. And are there more things that can be done? I'm sure there are. But I will say there's something deeper going on here. And if you look at the suicide rates, if you look at the addiction rates, this community's done a good job in responding to it, but it's been at ground zero in terms of the opioid crisis as well. If you look at the mental health crisis in our country today, there aren't enough laws, and in fact no law can correct some of the more fundamental cultural problems we face today as a country. And the shooting last night is an indication of that. So I look forward to working together with my colleagues to try to respond the most effective way possible. But we also have to look deep into our hearts and figure out how could someone point a gun at someone who he had never seen or known and pull the trigger. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Next, I appreciate the Senator's donation to the fund that the Dayton Foundation has put together. I know that our community comes together, and I know that this will be no different as the other episodes we've had in the past few months. Next, I'd like to invite Congressman Turner to come forward to say a few words. Appreciate him calling me this morning and appreciate him being here as well. Congressman Turner.
I want to thank the mayor for her leadership on this day of sadness for our community. This is a strong community, and I appreciate the mayor working diligently to pull everyone together. Also, I want to thank and congratulate the mayor and the police chief on the police presence that was in the Oregon District last night. It was extraordinary that they were able to respond so quickly. As a result of the police's actions, my daughter and hundreds others who were down in the Oregon District last night are alive and are safe today. I also want to thank the first responders, the police and fire who came to the scene and responded unbelievably for our community. This is an unbelievable amount of evil that we cannot comprehend. I appreciate the mayor pulling us together for a briefing today on the investigation that's ongoing. We'll learn more about this particular case. But Senator Brown is absolutely correct, as is Senator Portman, as we look across the country and we see this. We need a national conversation as to how we come together on a bipartisan basis to address this. Legislation, culturally, as a country. I thank the mayor for pulling us together and for her diligent work to try to find answers for the community, and also for the work last night that kept so many safe. Thank you.
Next, a state representative, we used to call him Sheriff Phil Plummer, wanted to say a few words.
Thanks, Mayor, and again, thank you for your leadership here. We've had some rough times in the city of Dayton, but you've really, you met the challenge and you've led the city, so thank you for your hard work and your efforts here. Just want to let the citizens know you have a great police department, a great fire department here. I went and toured the crime scene with everybody behind me here, and I was hoping it was my last crime scene. I toured, but we're back in action. But walking away from that crime scene, you know, I could stick my chest out, and I'm very proud of our first responders. They answered the call. You know, they ran towards a gunfire. When you're up against weapons like that, it's tough on those guys, and they made the call, and they took care of business. So thank them when you see them. You know, we can't give them enough awards because they saved a lot of people last night. Fire department, you guys did a great job. And our county dispatch center, they get overwhelmed with, you know, mass situations like this. So they did a tremendous job also. So you guys, let's not let this keep us down. Like I said, we had a rough year, but we always bounce back. We're a resilient community. We're in the game, we're in the fight, and we need to figure this out. So let me ask you guys this. I'm not going to get into policy discussions, but we the people make the call. We don't work for special interest groups, we work for the people. So let's sit down and let's figure out a solution to this. You know, it's mental health, it's guns, there's a lot of variables here, but we got to figure this out. So you guys, thanks for covering this, and let's stay strong, Dayton. We're in the game here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Deputy Chief Carper will come forward to give any new information he may have. I think it'll be pretty brief since we will have such a detailed briefing at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, thank you, Mary, and thank you for everyone's patience. We do have a comprehensive look at this coming up here at 4 o'clock. The only thing I will add right now, we do have a lost and found that's going to be established at the safety building downtown, 335 West 3rd Street. That's the City of Dayton Police Department headquarters, beginning at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. There were a lot of items that were left in the Oregon District, so if you could spread the word to the public, if any items were left, they can come and retrieve those beginning tomorrow morning. Thank you.
All right, questions?
Is there a word that you would describe the people of Dayton? I mean, you guys went back to the tornadoes, the KKK rally, this, I heard the word resilient, resiliency. Is there something that sums up the spirit of the people that live here?
Are you asking me?
Anyone who's willing to answer.
Well, I will answer, and then anyone else can answer. The word I use for Dayton is it has grit. And I think that is a word that describes what is this community's been through for the past 50 years, the grit of the changing economy, the grit when tough things happen, they come together. There's resilience in grit, but I think that is what makes us so strong and continues to make us resilient. And so I think that describes Dayton and its people in a way that I'm very, very proud of. I think everybody
And then, you know, we talked about the reaction, you know, how the first responders really came to the need of everybody there. A lot of after the fact, talked about mental health and you know, gun violence, but is there any way to proactively prevent something like this from happening? We see it time and time again, but, you know, this is a question for anybody, but is there a way to proactively prevent it from happening?
Anybody have a comment? Okay.
You know, we need to do what's right. You know, if a civilian's walking around with body armor, we call that clues. So, you know, why does a civilian have body armor? You know, if somebody is not acting right and they have high-powered weapons, reach out to them. I mean, we all know when somebody's having problems. We have to be a community and support people. Let's start doing what's right. You know, I watched some of the news conferences from the shooter's neighborhood, and they kind of said the guy had some problems. But we fail to step up and do what's right and address those problems. You know, the guy may need somebody to help him out, give him a hand up. So, you know, if something doesn't seem right, make a call. Call the police. That's what we're here for. Call us. You know, we have professionals here, counselors. You know, if it isn't right, just reach out to us.
Yes, Senator.
The former sheriff said that sort of questioned civilians wearing body armor like that, wearing those vests. Ballistic vests, and I say the same about civilians buying assault weapons. We tried an experiment in this country from the mid-90s to the mid-next decade for about 10 years of a ban on assault weapons, and it didn't get every assault weapon off the street, but it did make a difference, and there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people alive today that might not have been alive if we hadn't had a law prohibiting the purchase of assault weapons. And those weapons don't belong, they're not weapons for hunting. We don't question people having a gun to hunt. We don't question people having a gun to protect themselves, but civilians carrying assault weapons. And it just, again, speaks to the courage of the police department. with pistols or other weapons, but nothing like taking on a guy with an assault weapon. And why do we put our police in that situation too, where civilians carry these weapons of war? It's an unfair match by any stretch.
Senator Portman, a question for you, sir. The 2019 rate, there's going to be a mass shooting tomorrow and another one the day after and every day this year. You mentioned earlier in your comments that you're sure something more can be done. Do you have a day in mind or a week in mind, or is it having a plan, something to address these issues?
Well, as I said earlier, I think it requires a comprehensive approach because the tragedies you're talking about, each is different, and we don't know all the facts here yet, but what we do know, which I've seen in public reports, so I can say this, he shot his sister. We know that in a short period of time, and you'll find out the exact period of time at 4 o'clock, I won't tell you, but I'll just tell you in that short period of time there was a burst, and I've seen public reporting on that as to how many shots were fired. If that's true, that magazine, of course, would be illegal. So there's a law. So do we need more laws? Yeah, we probably do, and we did just pass something last year in 2018 to tighten the background checks. And I think there's a consensus now that we need background checks to make sure the wrong people don't have access to weapons. You'll learn more at 4 o'clock about whether he would have been caught up in that background check or not. But my point is, it's not just about laws. It's about something deeper. And mental health was mentioned earlier. We have a crisis in this country. There's no question about it. You know, people have talked about the deaths of despair, and they talk about the suicide rates, they talk about the addiction rates, and they talk about the mental health issues that are causing some of these. So this is a broader discussion that needs to be had. And I hope that when we get back, we will have that discussion, and we'll have it at the state level, we'll have it at every level, but we also have to have it in our communities, and in our homes, and in our hearts. And former sheriff, now Representative Plummer, talked about that. You know, in almost every one of these cases, there is, as you look back on it, some indication of a mental health problem. In some cases, actually, there have been investigations of individuals that unfortunately did not result in that person, you know, being treated the way he or she should have been. Parkland's an example of that. We don't know in this case yet enough, but again, from public reporting and what former sheriff, now representative, just told us, there were indications apparently. So how do we, in terms of prevention, how do we actually identify those individuals, get them the help they need, which is mental health treatment, which is sometimes with these red flag laws and other things to literally keep them in a situation where they can't harm others. Sometimes that means incarcerating. So there are needs for us to look at this on a broader basis.
Senator Turner, you've been working on this issue obviously in Congress, but can you talk, I don't know how come you are talking about how not only does this one hit home in your hometown, but obviously with your family as well.
Excuse me. Well, Senator Portman was saying this is a very difficult legislative issue. That's why I think we need a national conversation. The legislation that was passed in the House that's currently pending in the Senate would not have affected this situation. Senator Portman pointed out that in Ohio also, the magazine that was used is already illegal. There has to be, though, a legislative, broader conversation where we can find where we can have an impact. I think what the sheriff is saying is also incredibly important. And if there's a neighbor or a friend who you believe pose as a risk, take that first step. It's unthinkable for us how quickly our own families become so at risk. And this is why this is so important for us to pick up the phone, say there's a problem, say that there's an individual who appears to not only be a threat, but perhaps have weapons or caches to the extent that they have nefarious intent. I think that the former sheriff, state representative, has a great call to the community that if you see something, say something. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to gonna take like one more question. Yes.
To what extent was the shooter a known entity to law enforcement in the community? Did he have an arrest history? Anything along
Yeah, we'll present that at 4 o'clock. And I think we're actually getting ready for the 4 o'clock briefing. So rather than put you off to 4 o'clock, maybe we should put it off to 4 o'clock and so we can present what we have, and that'll answer a lot of questions.
And I just want to thank the senators and congressmen for coming this evening and this afternoon, and appreciate, and I'll see you guys at 4. Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Great job. Great job.
Glad you're done.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm just grabbing my mic, sorry.